Hey, I'm athlete Larry Sorensen here. Today, I'm going to chat with Jennifer Harvey to find out what makes her an autumn athlete that's not done yet. But remember, before we get started, if you enjoy our content, smash that subscribe button and support the channel. We really appreciate it. All right, let's get things started here. Jennifer, thanks so much for joining us today. Why don't you begin with giving us an introduction?
Well, first, thank you for inviting me. It's a real honor. My name's Jennifer Harvey. I'm 55 years old. I'm a middle distance runner in track, and I do some road running as well. I would say my specialty is the mile, either on the road or in the track. Um, my background is I live in New York City. I have a family, three kids in their 20s. I grew up not in New York, but overseas. I was born in Japan. I finished school between there and Hong Kong. And I did actually run when I was in high school in Hong Kong, although they only had, for girls, they only had up to the 800 meters. So what I ended up liking best, I learned later in life, a little bit in college, but really I kind of found it more as a master's runner.
Great to meet you, Jennifer. Appreciate you taking the time. Why don't you fill us in a little bit on your fitness history?
Well, I'm a little bit of a one-trick pony. I don't have great sort of hand-eye racket sport coordination. The other things I do besides running is with my family. We do downhill skiing in the winter. In the summer, we like to go to the Jersey Shore and we do water sports like water skiing, wakeboarding. I do some open water swimming, which I really love. I started to do it when I got injured running, but I've actually come to love it. I'm not saying I'm fast, but it's just an incredible lung workout. And it's a way to kind of face the fear of whatever's under the water. So I've kind of developed a love for that.
Just
Mhm.
fill us in general about your running history.
Yeah. Well, in high school, I think I figured out, I sort of realized running was something that suited me. Do you remember the Presidential Physical Fitness Awards? Well, they had that in Hong Kong too at the American School. And that's when I sort of started realizing I'm actually strong. So I could do, like, the pull up wall hang longer than other people, and I could run a bit faster than other people. And that translated to doing some high school track and field. And I was faster than the boys, and you just sort of, the light bulb slowly goes on. But like I said, they didn't have the middle distance that I do now. And then I went to school in New York City, college, meaning college, and I they don't recruit in Hong Kong. And I thought, well, I'm looking at the times in the school paper, and I thought I feel like I could run around those times. So I walked on, and so I ran middle distance at Columbia University. And the women's team was pretty young because they'd only admitted women kind of 4 years before I got there. I had an okay running experience there. And then I ran just recreationally after that, just to stay in shape, wrote little community races or not. And then when I had kids, I definitely took a break. I think I didn't run very much for about 10 years. And then as the kids started to get older, I jumped back into road races. And then a friend of mine, acquaintance I met, said, will you join our team? I think, you could race well. And so that's how it all really started. I joined a team called Urban Athletics. And then after a few years, just a couple of years ago, I joined Central Park Track Club, which has a much more robust kind of track and field team. Yeah, I did the 800 and the mile mostly, but I started to realize actually I'm much stronger at the mile. And so then that translated to doing more road miles. And I actually also do other distances. I do 5K, half marathon, and marathons, which I really love that whole training journey. And I'll keep doing a little bit of that, but I would say I'm far less competitive at those other distances.
Why don't you fill us in on any major setbacks that you've had along the way, and maybe even a little bit about how you've overcome them and where you're at right now?
I've probably had every injury possible. So I don't want to take up the entire podcast talking about my injuries particularly, but yeah, you learn, right? You do intervals in the wrong way, or you train too hard, you don't take enough easy days or rest days. And that's one thing that's great about being a master's athlete is you know what your body will tolerate better. Um, how did I overcome them? I had to take months off running in some cases. I had a lot of physical therapy. I did PRP at one point when I had a pretty traumatic tear in a tendon. I would say that was not a great experience. But yeah, now I just learned that I think the biggest risk is when you get really passionate and you get really amped up about training. That's when I have to kind of intentionally step back, because I know when I get a little crazy like that, there's higher risk of doing something. So I've kind of learned to, when I feel myself getting really excited about my training, to just calm down a little bit.
Tell us a little bit about some of your accomplishments, maybe some of your personal best times, awards, those types of things.
Okay. I'll just preface that by saying I hate talking about my accomplishments. I get embarrassed, but not that they're so great, but I probably my biggest achievement was that last year I got the American record in the women's 55 road mile. So that was a big thing for me. I did have to kind of age up to accomplish it. I was trying to do it for the women's 50 and I didn't succeed with that. Other things are I got national titles in the mile, the 1500, and the 800 over the last couple of years. I got the USATF Masters Track Athlete of the Year a couple years ago for New York State. Probably one achievement I'm really proud of is actually not like a national achievement per se, is the marathons I've completed. And the whole journey, weeks of training and having to tolerate exhaustion and managing your body to avoid injury when you're marathon training is like just so rewarding for me. So that's a good one because it's not about the result per se. Yeah, I do try to do better each marathon, but I know I'm not gonna get any kind of records running that distance. So I do really like them, but I only do about one every couple of years just because of the strain of all that training.
And what are the big marathons that you've done?
I've only done 4. I've done New York, Chicago, Boston, and I did Berlin last fall. And then next month I'm applying for Tokyo. So I'm trying to do all 6 world majors. I hope I can get into Tokyo.
Okay.
But I think it's good. It kind of gives me a base of endurance. In fact, I don't know if this is coincidence. I don't think it is, but the best road miles I've ever run are always when I'm marathon training, which is very strange, but I don't think it's a coincidence. I just think that the mileage helps. And then maybe I have some natural speed in that distance. So somehow the combination is good. Every time it happens, I'm like, I should just marathon train. That's all. So I'm sure that no coach would agree with that. But anyway, that's been my experience.
You mentioned your record last year in the road mile. What was your time?
It was 5:24.9, but for some reason they don't do points at the USATF, and so it's 5:25. But it's not my fastest road mile. At Fifth Avenue mile, which I think most people know that event. Last September, I did a 5:14, but that course is not record eligible. It's A to B, and it needs to have a turn. There's rules about what's record eligible. So I was really excited about that time, but it doesn't count as a record.
And then your marathon times, give us an idea of what range are you running your marathons in?
Yeah, I've run them all in a really tight range, whether no matter how sort of fit or prepared I was, anywhere from 3:12 to 3:07. 3:07 was my best, definitely my best training cycle. Although I did sprain my ankle about 10 days before and I thought I was out, but it turned out not to be such a bad injury. And so I ran it and it was awesome. And that was Boston, which is a brutal course, so yeah, that was really exciting.
You've had some outstanding results, obviously, in what you've been doing. Do you have any current goals on the horizon and/or pending events that you're really training for right now?
Well, I already mentioned, hoping to get into Tokyo this summer. I'm going to run the Brooklyn Half, kind of is quasi as training, because I was telling you that the mileage seems to help my shorter distances. I'll do the Bella Mile in New Jersey and something called the Big Bang Mile, which is the USATF New Jersey Open Championship. And so I'd like to get a couple good times. I'll try to hold on to my AR as long as I can, but there's competition out there that could run really close and a few people getting ready to age up within the next 12 months. So I'm a realist and I'll just hang on to it as long as I can. we'll see what happens this summer.
Speaking of records, I was going to mention this earlier, but aren't you part of a world record or American record relay team?
Yeah, I'm part of two world record teams, actually. The women's 55 4x8, the women's 50 4x4, and also an American record in the women's 50 4x8 indoors.
Fill us in a little bit about your general fitness regimen, both on the track, on the road, but also, in the gym or cross training, whatever it is you do overall to get yourself fit and ready to go for these competitions.
I mean, for me, because I have work, I have family, my work requires me to travel, sometimes very long distances. The first thing I have to do is, well, it's not hard for me because I like it, but to prioritize it and schedule it. Like, I literally put it in my calendar. This is where I'm going to run. This is where I'm going to do stationary bike. This is when I'm going to lift. And so that's the first thing I do. In terms of what the actual exercise, probably I run generally 5 or 6 days a week. I try to cross train at least 1 day a week, and then hopefully within a 10-day cycle, I have a rest day. There's usually at least one speed workout, and depending on what I'm training for, maybe there are two. A lot of tempo and broken tempo. As I get older, the broken tempo is a really good approach to the tempo threshold work. And then, yeah, if my body is not having some kind of issues, then usually there's a long run in there.
And then what about the weight room? What do you do for strength training?
I'll admit, like, in the past year, I got pretty negligent. It's amazing how you get out of practice doing things that you don't love as much. And I would say I don't love lifting and weight training as much. I try to listen to music to distract me and stuff like that. But I would say in the last 2 months, I've got better. I've put it back, tried to do 2 times a week. I focus on legs because my upper body is pretty strong just genetically. I don't think I need to do that much work there. My cross training is usually stationary bike or swimming, and in the summer, open water swimming.
Give us an idea of your approach to diet and nutrition.
Well, sleep is one thing I'll mention because it's so important, especially when you're juggling lots of things and if you're changing time zones. Fortunately, my husband prioritizes sleep too. That makes it a lot easier. He's always sort of headed for bed, and I try to go at the same time. Nutrition, yeah, normal things. I try to eat whole foods. I try not to overeat if I can help it. I'm not as slight as a lot of runners, and so I have to kind of manage that a little bit. Yeah, I take, just sort of normal supplements, not, vitamins.
Do you prioritize protein at all? A lot of autumn athletes and general fitness people do that, but not everybody. So I was kind of interested to find out what your approach is to protein in particular, or do you just eat well and however it lays, it lays?
I'm not a vegetarian, but that's my preference. I don't want to, I'll eat a steak, but not very often. But if I eat protein, when I eat protein, I would say 4 or 5 times a week. It's usually chicken, fish, or tofu. And I like beans too, but yeah, I don't eat a lot of red meat, and it's not because I'm trying to be healthy. It's just because it's not my preference. I don't like the taste as much.
All right, so we're going to talk philosophy for a second here. You're 55, soon to be 56. You got family, career, all these things going on. What motivates you to do this at this age? And a second part of that question is kind of goes along with that. If you had a secret sauce that, maybe keeps you motivated or has really made you successful here, and you could bottle it and share it with the rest of us, what would that secret sauce be?
So I'll start with the motivation. Like, I want to run and exercise, like that makes me feel good. I always tell the story of my older sister used to joke that she's glad I found running so I could assimilate into normal society. So I think as a kid, I was like a little hyper. Yeah, I don't need to be motivated because it's something I like to do. And I think that's probably a mistake some people make when they think I need to start running. Maybe if they really don't like it, they should probably find a physical activity that they enjoy more, right? So for me, I don't need a lot of motivation. I won't lie. If I see an amazing pro race, of course, I feel like super excited to get out there and run. If I watch a big marathon on TV, I want to go do that. I mean, how many of us have seen a local marathon and you think, oh, I'm going to do that next year? So that's always exciting. But in terms of secret sauce. I think that as autumn athletes, it's really helpful to think about why we run. And as I would say, sort of lean into that reason for running, because that's going to kind of help you be motivated if you ever have moments you're not motivated. If you run because you like how it feels, think about that. If you run because, I don't know, something else. But for me, I think one reason I don't need extra motivation is that I run for me. Like I don't run for the way the way somebody sees me or because I think I should. I run because I love it for me personally and gives me personal reward. And so that's the secret sauce for me, is it's a personal thing. It's not about getting a trophy. It's about like pushing myself, doing things that are scary. And then, if I get a record or a good time, that's just like icing on the cake. So the other thing that it gives me is that it's a time just for me. I'm not doing work. I'm not taking care of someone. I'm not, helping my family. I'm just doing something that's for me. So I think that's why I like it.
All right, so we're gonna have some fun for a second here and do some rapid fire questions and just get to know a little bit about you and some quirky things. So just random funny stuff. Okay, sound good? All right, let's start with an easy one. What's your favorite color?
That's not easy. I like all colors. Maybe teal.
Okay.
Aquamarine, how's that?
All right. Well, it's your favorite color, so that's all good. Whatever color it is, it's all good. All right. So I thought that was an easy one. Maybe that's not such an easy one. Okay. Here's an easy one for you. Maybe that's not an easy one either, but what's your favorite movie?
Oh, that's easy. Grease, the one with John Travolta, Olivia Newton-John. Like if that comes on, I just, the whole world disappears. I can only watch what's in front of me. So I love that movie. I think it came out when I was in 4th grade. I just love it.
If you need to get a little pumped up for an interval training session, what's your go-to hype song?
Well, I really like the Apple Music playlist called Jumpstart, which, the name is perfect, right? It kind of gets you revved up. It changes, the songs on it change, but that's usually what I turn on when I'm like getting ready to go out for a run. There's one song like lately that I really like. It's called Listomania by a band called Phoenix. And it's just, I think the pace might be like 180 cadence or something. I don't know. It's perfect. So if I listen to that, or if I listen to it on a run, I always have a really good run. I don't know why.
So what is, I'm not familiar with the band. So what's the genre? Is it a rock band? Is it a
rock pop? Yeah.
So if you had to do one of these, skydive, scuba dive, or 3-meter platform dive, which one are you going to do?
Oh, wow. Well, I've done a lot of scuba diving, so I wouldn't pick that because I've already done it. Definitely skydive, I think. The platform diving, it looks amazing, but I feel like for sure I'd have a belly flop and that would hurt.
Would you go for a yacht, a mansion, or a super expensive sports car?
None of those things.
Nope. Well, if I'm just going to give you one, which one would you take?
Maybe a mansion.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. I guess I'm not that materialistic. The other thing is those questions they scare me a lot because when I went to college, I look like American, I sound American. Well, I am, American passport holder, but I had this huge pop culture gap from living my entire youth through 18 in Asia. So people would say famous singers' names or movies and I wouldn't know who they were. And, the whole room would sometimes turn and look at me like, have you been living under a rock? So when the questions come, I can feel myself tensing up like, oh, I'm not going to know what this is.
Okay. Well, that's actually very interesting in an itself. So let me ask you a little bit about that. What was your favorite thing about growing up in Hong Kong and Japan? And then what were maybe some things about the culture in hindsight that maybe you didn't like as much?
Well, there's this concept called a third culture kid, and it's when you don't grow up in your own culture. So you're not from the place you're growing up. You're not from your home country either because you're not growing up there. So you have your own third culture, and the traits of a third culture person is they never feel like they really quite belong anywhere. And the result of that is you subconsciously are always trying to assimilate wherever you go. So if I went to Wisconsin, I'd be watching how you talk. I'd be looking at people cross the street. That's just the way. So I'm trying to think if there's an application to running. Yeah, I'm probably like looking at other runners all the time and seeing, like, even on the track or in a road, like what's the etiquette, what's the behavior. Um, so that's kind of like a good and bad thing, because you never assume people are like you or should be like you. You're very open-minded. Um, yeah, there's nothing I didn't really like. I'm sure there were moments where I was treated like an outsider, but generally speaking, it was such a rich experience. I learned, foreign languages, and yeah, I just have a real love for travel and interest in the world outside of the US, because, that's a big part of me. So yeah, all in all, I mean, my one regret I have is I didn't give the same back to my kids, but in exchange, what they got is like that stability and some real roots here in New York. So maybe there's pros or cons. There's not like all good or all bad way to grow up.
What languages do you speak?
I speak Japanese. That's, Cantonese is what they spoke in Hong Kong mainly when I lived there. And I can just do, kind of basic stuff. I wouldn't say I speak Cantonese at all. I know words, I can get around and stuff.
I'm going to tell you that you're welcome here, and I hope you feel welcome here around us,
Thank you.
Jennifer, really want to say thank you so much for doing this and spending some time with us and letting us know what makes you an autumn athlete that's not done yet. I'd like to close up this chat by just giving you the floor to address our audience and give us any final thoughts.
I think most autumn athletes know this from experience, but just to remember, I do see, fellow masters athletes that sometimes feel upset if their times are getting slower, as they're bound to do with age, right? And I would say, we learn more from our failures than our successes, and the fact that you have to have maybe a tough race or more and more tough races, and you have to pick yourself up and keep on keeping on, is like that's an amazing muscle to develop, right? And it helps you in the rest of your life, whether it be work or personal. So I would say think about it that way, because we're not going to always get faster, right, as we get older.
Well, there you go. Great advice from Jennifer Harvey. She is definitely an autumn athlete that's not done yet. Remember, folks, keep moving, make your own goals, and train hard to achieve them. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time.